What is up, cheeseheads? Welcome back to another episode of BAM GPG. So, Bryson, we got a little bit of off-season updates we're going to get into,
Yeah.
but before we get into the true football side of things here this off-season, I wanted to start with what is the biggest story of the today and really this week, this off-season for the Packers, and that's the passing of one of the most important figures in the Green Bay Packers history in former president Bob Harlan, right?
Yeah.
So many of you probably know, some of the younger fans may not know who Bob Harlan is, but he passed away this week at the age of 89. And honestly, Packer fans owe this man a lot more than what they probably realize in Green Bay.
Yeah.
If you're a fan who grew up watching Brett Favre play, right? Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, the Packers, today, they truly do exist because of what Bob Harlan did for this organization in Green Bay. When Harlan was the appointed president for the Green Bay Packers back in 1989, um, the franchise in Green Bay was in a rough spot, right? It was in a rough spot. You talk about the structure of the field, the state of the team, the financials of the team, right? This team had been mediocre for decades, right? There's a lot of older Packer fans who have been through the bad years, right? Again, a lot of mediocre decades. As I mentioned, Lambeau Field, it was aging at the time, right? Didn't have
Yeah.
many of the new updates that you see today. And attendance and excitement around the team, they were starting to decline prior to him arriving in Green Bay there in 89. And we're, you kind of hear the whispers in Green Bay here, Bryson, the smallest market in professional sports, right? You
Yeah.
got that. People were starting to question whether or not that market could sustain an NFL franchise long term, right? And Bob Harlan, he came into Green Bay, he changed it all, right? One of the first things he did for the Green Bay Packers that completely kind of changed the trajectory of this franchise was hire general manager Ron Wolf in 91, right? And we
Yeah.
all know Ron Wolf, he made the single probably most important decision in the uh recent history for the Green Bay Packers when he traded for Brett Favre. Favre turned the Packers immediately into contenders, right? Decades of non-contenders. He brought in Favre. We were contenders. And suddenly, three things in Green Bay started to feel relevant again, right? Where
Yeah.
you had decades of irrelevant football.
Yeah.
They were starting to become one of the more premier franchises in the NFL again. And ultimately, that led the Packers to winning Super Bowl 31 over the New England Patriots, brought the Lombardi Trophy back home to Green Bay after about a 30-year drought from
Yeah.
that. So,
We almost went back to back too.
yeah, they did. Lost to Denver the following season. But Harlan, his impact, went beyond the football side of things for Green Bay, right? He got him back. Green Bay got back on track on the field, but he really helped modernize the entire organization, as I had mentioned earlier. He led the Lambeau Field renovation. You see that today as you're walking through the atrium there. He turned the stadium into one of the best and most iconic destinations in all of sports,
Yeah.
right? You see fans coming to Lambeau Field for the history. The stadium's just iconic, right? It's one of the best places to visit in the NFL.
Yeah.
He also really kind of expanded upon the community ownership of the Green Bay Packers by keeping that, community model to them, right? Keeping the team located in the Green Bay market and ensuring the franchise would never leave the city of Green Bay, right?
Yeah.
Now, just think about that for a second, right? Most NFL teams, they're owned by billionaires, right? The Packers, they're owned by hundreds of thousands of fans, right?
Uh-huh.
Bryson and I are one of them.
Hmm.
And Bob Harlan, he played a huge role in protecting the structure and strengthening of the franchise financially. You see people visiting. You got the Lambeau Field tours. You got the atrium. You got probably of all stadiums I've been to, the largest pro shop there. Green Bay has certainly turned it around financially. And a lot of that's accredited to the work that Bob Harlan has done. And because of him, the Packers are consistently one of the most stable and well-run franchises in not just the NFL, but professional sports in general. The stability that he brought is why the Green Bay Packers have been able to compete for the previous 2 or 3 decades, right,
Yeah.
Bryson? It's why players want to come here, right? Even though it is a small market. It's why the Packers are always relevant year after year. And Bob Harlan, he didn't just lead the Green Bay Packers, right? He helped shape the kind of secure the future of this franchise, right? Um it was in dire's prior to him arriving to Green Bay. So today Bryson and I just wanted to say thank you to Bob Harlan for everything he did for the Green Bay Packers organization and to the Green Bay Packer fans everywhere.
Well, yeah, you think about it. If he did not exist, we would probably still suck. Maybe be even out of the league right now.
Yeah, there's a real chance that Green Bay may have not been able to sustain their existence in such a small market if it hadn't been for him. We were not in good shape financially prior to him coming. That's
Yeah.
100% for sure, Bryson. So, wanted to kind of transition from that here a little bit, Bryson. Now, want to shift over. So the Packers have officially hired a new special teams coordinator. The team hired Cameron Achord to replace Rich Bisaccia, right? So Bisaccia is finally gone. A little bit about him. So he previously worked for the Patriots and most recently the New York Giants. So this move right here, Bryson, it's signaling that Matt LaFleur wanted a fresh voice running that unit. And
Yeah.
I think the fans wanted that as well. And again, honestly, it was time for a change. Rich Bisaccia, he had to go. Our special teams just weren't doing it. Cost us way too many games over the past 3 seasons, really.
Yeah.
So there's that. So a little bit excited about that, and a little bit on the Packers free agent preparation so far. So earlier this week, within this last week here, we heard the news about Xavier McKinney restructuring his contract to make it more kind of a team friendly deal where they're able to kind of kick some of that salary, that cap space down the road.
And we also re-signed Chris Brooks.
Yeah, absolutely. So adding that depth at running back, it's important. The Packers, as Bryson mentioned, made a smaller kind of splash roster by re-signing Chris Brooks to a 2-year deal for the Green Bay Packers. So Brooks, he played a depth role for the Green Bay Packers last year. Josh Jacobs was a little bit banged up throughout the season, so we called on him more often than not. And he really showed some value as a physical runner and on special teams as well, right? So these kind of signings, they usually don't make big headlines, but they're important, right? Because teams rely on depth. We saw it this year when Josh Jacobs was a little banged up this season. So it's an important signing for sure. So that is our Packers update. They're starting to kind of clear some cap space, which tells me they're going to be a little bit aggressive this free agency, which they should be, right? There's some positions of need that really, really need to address: offensive line, interior defensive line, in that cornerback room.
And I know some of you guys are gonna say, but we only have 2.7 million. But we're gonna release some players when the new league years
Yeah,
starts.
absolutely. And there's some players that we're not going to resign. You look at players like it looks like they're pointing towards players like Quay Walker. He's probably going to test
I
out the
know.
free agency market.
I know they said they're gonna cut. I'm pretty sure they said they're gonna cut Ellen Jenkins.
Yep, I could see Elton Jenkins, Rasheed Walker. I could see he's
Yeah.
probably his value is going to spike a little bit, so I think he's probably going to test the open market as well as Quay Walker and Romeo Dobbs too. He's another
Yeah.
player I would love to have back. Right, I always call him Mister Consistent for the Packers. Whenever you need a big play, a big catch, he's always the guy that seems to pull those balls down. But it does look like he's trending to um, testing the open market as well. So those are 3 notable players: Quay Walker, Rasheed Walker, and Romeo Dobbs. Probably going to hit the open market there.
I also feel like we could cut Aaron Banks too.
You could. There's some room, and you look at Rashawn Gary. It sounds like maybe they say they still have some hope in Rashawn Gary. We'll see. I don't know what would tell him that based off of his whole last 3 quarters of the season last year, his effort, his play style, and just his aggression there out on the field. He was almost non-existent. He was losing reps in the starting rotation there to Ingabari and Lucas Van Ness. So
Yeah.
I don't know what they're seeing, based off of what we saw live, what we saw on the field. You go back, you watch some of the tape. It just wasn't there for Rashawn Gary, right? So we'll see if he comes back. If he does, I certainly hope it is something where they could restructure his contract as well to make it more team friendly, to be more aggressive this offseason.
I also hope they restructure Jordan Love's contract.
He his
Just like a little bit.
His is the contract that could absolutely be
Yeah.
restructured too, and maybe you take the same approach as you did with Xavier McKinney, right? But we'll see. Is certainly McKinney's around to stay for Green Bay, so don't be panicking there. It's just kind of taking more of a team-friendly contract, and when I say that, he's not losing money; he's taking it more on the front end than he is the back end with this one. So.
Yeah.
Bryson, that is our update. We're starting to tread into free agency. The league year is right around the corner, and we'll start prepping kind of for the draft too to see who's going to be available for Green Bay in the second round there, Bryson. As always,
It's go Pack Go.